Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show.
I like your hair.
Thank you.
Yeah, that looks good. Did you just get it done?
I got it done Saturday. Yes.
Nice.
I was like, shave it off. She's like, you sure? I'm like, buzz it. Like, buzz it. I mean, I would have the entire thing buzz if I could, but she let it go a little bit long. So, but yeah, no, I was like, take it off. I was like, take it off, please. I can't take this anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like long hair. Basically, you can do the same thing. Like, right? I mean, I guess there's a little bit, but then when I get cold at work, I can
Yeah,
put
see, exactly. I have to put a hat. I have to put a hat on.
You know what it is, Emily? It's the earrings that are throwing me off.
I know. See, I have to do the earrings because I got this like really short hair now, so I need to have something a little blingy. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to 5x3 Radio. Rebecca and I are here on this. Oh my gosh, it's the end of July. Well, not quite the end of July. The end of July is next week, but it's the 26th.
Not as hot as it was in June.
No, it's wonderful. It's lovely. It was lovely this morning at the gym. It was actually below 80 when I turned the extractor fan on. It got below 80. It's the first time I haven't turned the AC on this week. I know, it's beautiful. And today is Charlotte's birthday.
Yeah, I saw your post.
Yep. So my sister would have been 48.
Nice.
She's been 48 today. I know. So, and usually it's, I always tell the story. She was, my mom says when she was born, they went into the hospital and it was 1976 and it was cold, like freezing, like winter coat cold.
The weather outdoors was cold.
It was freezing. It was freezing. It was just like this cold, really weird cold day. And then she was born, and like she was born within like 5 minutes. My mom said she had her legs like, closed in the Volkswagen. So she was born like immediately. And the next day when they left the hospital, it was hot as hell. It was like, and that's why I used to say that it was when Charlotte was born, hell froze over. Hell froze over the day my sister was born. She was a hellion. She really was. That's what made her wonderful, was that she was just like, she kind of, she walked the beat of her own, her own drum. She did her own thing. But
so, like, I saw your post, but like, do you guys have any like special things or traditions or whatever that you do when it's Charlotte's birthday?
We're celebrating tomorrow. We're celebrating tomorrow. I actually just checked with my mom, like, so what are we doing? So we get sushi. We have sushi.
Did she that was her favorite or something?
She loves sushi, yes. And we usually get an ice cream cake. Ice cream cakes. She loved ice cream cakes. But sushi, she really likes sushi. So we always think about if she were here, she'd be like, oh, I see how it is. You're all having sushi and I'm not invited. It's like, yeah, that's right. That's right. You're not invited. So she'd be pissed right now. She was always pissed. That was her MO. There's a great picture. I didn't share the picture of her sad at her birthday party when she was I think she was 2 or 3. She just was like miserable. She was always miserable. My mom said she was never happy unless she was hurting somebody. Then she was happy.
Jeez.
I know it's awful. It's awful to say, but that was her. So in the last podcast, part 1, we discussed training, after an illness, so coming back after being sick, and what Rebecca and I like to do, our protocols. And we also spoke about training after and during it, I guess, with an injury too, right? So what happens when you come back to the gym?
Started to venture into that, wrapped up the notion of coming back after being sick with like just being gentle and forgiving with yourself, because your body may still be recovering, even though you feel better. It's better by comparison.
Yes.
But you may not be 100% yet.
No. And typically if people come back too soon, and your daughter, finding that out for herself, when she returned to the gym a little too early and pushed herself, that you could actually set yourself back. And I don't want people to do that. I don't want people, and I actually had to let a client know who trained last week, and our bodies really do. They do know when we're not well. It's pretty clear. It's pretty obvious. You know, maybe not at the time, I should say. Sometimes, you know, especially if we like to train, we may in retrospect be like, oh, that's why I felt like shit that day. Because then I got sick the day after, and I was really tired during my training session. Like our bodies just automatically kind of, they know what's going on. He was training, he trained last Monday and last Wednesday. And Wednesday, I noticed on the spreadsheet, he said really tired. Okay. That was new, but that he's usually not that tired after a training session. And then I get a message about a day later saying, I've got COVID. I'm like, and along with the lines is, I've got COVID. I think I'll do some deadlifts today. Kind of see how it goes. That was the message I got I got an email, right? So I immediately and that was on the forums. I had to log into the forum. I went right to the spreadsheet and basically deleted his Friday session and said, you're not doing anything today. You've got COVID. I don't care if you feel like you're not that sick right now. I don't want you to do anything. I want you to rest. Do not. And I literally in green, I canceled everything out. I just, you know, deleted everything. And he got my message. He said, message received. And then a couple of days later, he said, so this and this and this. He goes, I'm really glad I didn't train on Friday. You were right. I'm thinking, no, I'm right. He's like, I didn't do any training today. I'm thinking, thank goodness. But this is what we have to do to some people, right? Some people automatically are like sick and they don't have a problem with missing this training session. And then others who enjoy training, right? Enjoy exercise, enjoy moving our bodies, have to really pull back and have someone tell us if we can't do it ourselves to stop.
Like they need permission.
They need permission. Exactly. You need permission to not do anything. So I made it clear to him, you are not to do anything. And he didn't. And I actually didn't put anything on the spreadsheet. I mean, I was really like, you know, it was just like pretty adamant. But sometimes you have to tell the people because they think that, well, I don't feel so bad. It's like, probably because you're actually not into the middle of the sickness just yet. Like Diego didn't feel that bad when he first got it. And then 3 days later, he was a wreck. So it took 3 days for him to really, you know, feel bad. And then he felt bad. And then once he felt better, you know, his body automatically, you know, told him that. So we have to be mindful about how quickly we come back from an illness, and depending on what that illness is, you know, and how much of a toll it takes on our bodies. So that's what was spoken in the last podcast. And we started talking about pain. So we wanted to today dive a little bit more into, you know, pain, what's going on when our bodies feel pain.
Yeah, because I mean, similarly, you've got people on either end of the spectrum. Some people who feel a little bit of a twinge and they're like, oh, I have pain. I can't do this exercise today. I feel something in my knee. They're calling it pain. And other people who might feel the same thing. And they're like, that's the way I feel on a regular basis. That's nothing. People who, I don't know, would train with a fracture or something.
God, yeah, seriously. Yeah, no, I mean, I know that would be me. I'm like, oh, it's just a flesh wound. Like, you've got no arms. just a flesh wound. And those who know the reference for that movie, I'm not going to tell what that movie is. You can email us or make a comment when we put this podcast out, and you can let me know what movie that is, what that movie is from, the line from. Yeah, that's hard for me. I've had to really work on pulling back myself when I feel something, because I feel so many different things.
Yeah.
I have to kind of decide, is it worth pushing, or, you know, or do I need to stop? And I'm much better about stopping when something occurs or I'm feeling something, and redirect my, you know, my training to something else. And usually I'm spot on, because nothing else, you know, nothing goes to the other extreme. I don't end up, you know, completely out of the picture, you know, in regards to my training. But we have to kind of teach that to people. So what are some things that because we talked about this before we started recording, what are some things that you do with people? How do you kind of feel out what exactly are they experiencing, especially when you're doing online coaching?
Yeah,
I think.
Well, So, I mean, I like to help them develop a vocabulary besides just pain or
Hmm.
hurt, and to think about it in terms of gray area, not just
Yes.
black and white.
Yes.
And so, sometimes, and it like, like we're talking about with illness too, some of it comes along with getting to know the client and how they perceive things, and how they react to what they perceive and how they're verbalizing. So, if you have a client who's describing to you that a sensation that they felt in their shoulder doing overhead press, felt like shredding or nauseating, or they felt this clicking that was nauseating, or something like that, you can kind of get an idea that that's somebody who tends to catastrophize, or possibly exaggerate maybe some
Right.
of the sensations. So somebody like that, trying to help them to understand that there are other ways of describing these sensations that are not quite so horrific,
Hmm.
because the language that we use to
Hmm.
describe those sensations shapes the mindset around them. So words words like ripping or shredding or nauseating, or I don't know, what are some of the ones that you recall that uh, clients might use that
My
are
use, well, I would say for me, what I tended to do with people, I use the words, is it a sharp stabbing shooting pain? And they go, well, no. I'm like, okay, they're fine. I mean, basically, I usually don't get those kind of words described to me. I'll get my knee feels off, or my shoulder feels off. Something is snapping, or something's clicking.
yeah,
And I'll say, okay, well, is it a sharp stabbing shooting pain that makes you want to vomit? No. I'm like, okay.
yeah.
I think we can.
People offer those descriptions up right off the bat. So
you know,
sometimes, helping people to come up with language to describe it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get people who will, like you can see on video, that they did something that was extremely painful. You can see the wince, you can see
yes,
the limp,
yes.
you can see all these things. And they say, oh, I just tweaked something. So you get people on either end of the spectrum and trying to help them understand the difference. And for me, what I try and do is talk to people about the VAS scale, the visual analog. I
Mhm.
forget what the S is for. Scale, probably visual analog scale. So the 1 to 10 smiley faces.
Mhm.
That they, or sometimes there's descriptive words like moderate or mild that they'll use in doctors' offices to try and help people, and then sort of looking at that scale, talk about that in some other terms. So a 1 might be just you have a vague awareness of a particular body part. 2, I usually call that like, oh, my knee is talking to me today.
Mhm.
Is your knee, is it making you aware of it in various activities? If it's a 5, it's something that they're conscious of almost all the time. But then somewhere in between the 2 and the 5, the sensations might be along the lines of an ache, or they feel a tugging, or it just feels a little bit off, or kind of sore. So some of those kind of words, down at the lower end of the VAS scale.
Mhm.
And then things like you're saying, like a sharp or a stabbing pain. A lot of times it's helpful to ask too if they feel like, if it feels tingly
Yeah.
or nervy.
Yeah.
That's good to know also. Um, and just try and get some more description, um, some more nuance to the way they describe the pain, and kind of think about it on a sliding scale, not on off.
Right.
So, like it's not an on off switch when you're recovering from an injury. It's a dimmer switch. And so that whole idea of a range of numbers, or a range of sensations, and where do you fit on that scale? Where do you fit on that continuum? And not, do you feel something? Okay, I can't train. Is it 100% better? Okay, now I can train. But sort of figuring out, are you moving along that scale in the appropriate or desired direction? Is it a little bit better? Is it a little bit less noticeable than it was before? That kind of thing, and just paying attention to that, and then using that awareness and that language for talking about pain and giving it a number like that on the VAS scale as a way to monitor how their recovery is going.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is noticing their pain, their injury, their issue, whatever it is, if it's a 2 or a 3 in regular everyday life, so they're just kind of hanging out and they notice it, that's okay to train. It doesn't have to be 100% better. It doesn't have to be completely pain-free. If it's the sort of thing where you're limping, maybe you want to train other body parts that day. If you're limping, maybe just do upper body, or if you're unable to move your arm, just do lower body and figure out what you can do.
Right.
And that's kind of where I start with people.
Yeah, it's a very tricky subject, right? I mean, you know this and I know this. It's like there's a fine line, and part of what we do as coaches is obviously not just, teach people how to move well and, program them accordingly and, and help them get stronger, but to teach people, educate them on their bodies and educate them on how they interact with the exercises, and what exercises work for them and what exercises may not work well for them, because not, all of our bodies are different. We can all learn these exercises, we can all learn the lifts, but sometimes, it varies from person to person, and our bodies they're not made of glass, but if we use them, and we use them in the gym, and then we also use them outside of the gym in our daily lives, lifting up children or carrying groceries or tending to the lawn or painting the house, whatever we do, we might use our bodies in a different way and something could happen, right? So having to really educate people on what is pain, because even when something goes away, even if the pain goes away in our leg or our arm, it's still in our heads, right? That sensation of like, well, I did this, it's still with me. How do we, and having to help people figure out how to get through that, where the brain is still aware of what's going on, how to talk the body into getting back to the gym, getting back into training. And then some people we have to pull back on, who won't say anything, who won't tell me that there's something going on until a month later. And then all of a sudden someone else says, didn't you tell Emily about your back? Oh no. I'm like, what about your back? Well, it's been bothering me. Like, well, you can't keep that from me. Well, I didn't think it was necessary because I was getting better. That's fine. Things can get better and then they can get worse, and they get better and they can get worse. But it's always a good idea to let your coach know if something's just kind of going on, so that we can kind of say, okay, well, how did it feel yesterday? How did it feel this morning? How did it feel last week? I mean, whatever the issue is, being, making the person who's coaching you aware of that. I like to use a scale of 1 to 5. Use the scale, the 1 to 10. I found that when I give people 1 to 10, someone who maybe is apt to catastrophize their issue will take it to like an 8. And I go, really? Like you're almost close to being in the hospital? Oh, well, no, I mean, I can walk and I can drive and I can go to work. Okay, well, let's bring it down a bit. So if I give them 1 to 5 and I say 5 is you're in the hospital, they go, oh, well, it's like a 2. And then because they know that if I say 4, then I'm close to being in the hospital, and Emily's going to tell me I need it, something's got to give. And obviously I'm not limping and I'm not dragging my leg around or dragging my arm around. So it helps someone kind of reevaluate exactly what they might be feeling by giving them a very limited amount of room between 1 and 5. That's why I've decided I did that, because I found that that helps people kind of reevaluate, okay, what's really going on with me? Because, you know, as Diego always says, if we had just stayed on all fours, we probably wouldn't have any of the issues that we have. But we chose to walk upright.
Yes,
And
I
once
do
you
see
choose to
that
walk
too. I don't
upright,
know. She saw that on TikTok. Now she's quoting that too.
once you find yourself walking upright, everything just goes to hell. So over the years of working with people and trying to help people reevaluate their quote unquote their pain and what they're going through, a lot of it is really helping people just stay calm. I think, like really relax about what the
Yeah.
situation is, because
Yeah.
we can make it worse than what it is, because I'm not supposed to feel anything. Actually, you will feel something. No one's ever said that getting stronger or moving your body is going to be pain free. And I don't want to use the word necessarily pain, but
It's more like sensation free.
sensation, exactly. Sensation free. Like you're going to feel something. You're alive. I always tell people, well, I woke up this morning and I said, that's because it lets you know that you're alive. They're like, yeah, I know, but I'm like, I know, but it lets you know that you're alive. um, I have to pay attention to my own body and when things bother me. And I have to, and I, as I just mentioned earlier, I've learned and educated myself on pulling back when I really need to before I go over that step over that line and make it worse. That's
Yeah.
me though.
So I think a couple things along, like regarding what you've just said. I think, using a 1 to 5 can be helpful to help somebody reframe if they
Hmm.
tend to catastrophize. But either way, you're still giving them descriptors to ascribe to the number. So
Right.
whether the number is a 2 out of 5 or a 4 out of 10, there's some
Exactly.
conversation and some description and some clarification that happens around the use of whichever 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 scale you choose to use. Um, and then also just generally like education about like the pain experience, because
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely, what happens in your head if you're catastrophizing is going to affect your pain experience.
Absolutely.
It's going to cause you to be more protective of the area. It's and then as a result of that, muscles in that area are going to become stiffer. You're going to have restricted range of motion, more so than you would if you were able to just kind of take a deep breath and relax a little bit
Hmm.
about it. So those conversations with coaches that can kind of allay some of those concerns are going to be helpful for people who tend to catastrophize. And then for people on the other end of the spectrum who downplay everything, realizing that when your body is trying to tell you something politely and subtly at a 1 out of 5 or a 2 or 3 out of 10,
Hmm.
it's something you should listen to and be aware of. But then also along those lines, like with mindset, a lot of times I think it's really helpful to talk to people about how that particular body part um, impacts, or how awareness of that body part arises in their regular life,
Hmm.
because so many times it's where your brain is that affects the pain experience. So if somebody is doing something that they love, maybe they're playing with a grandchild, they're squatting down picking the kid up, they're standing back up, not even thinking about it because they're doing something that they enjoy, versus they're in the gym and that's their chore, that's
Sure.
their medicine that they have to take in order to maintain an active life, or vice versa. If it's a person who loves to train, maybe they're downplaying any sensation that they have in the gym, but then they notice it more in everyday life. I mean, those are just good questions to ask about circumstances under which
Hmm.
a person recognizes
Hmm.
their discomfort or sensation or awareness of a body part. And I usually start out with words that are kind of low key like that.
Yeah.
Or just ask for more clarification. Oh, I've got pain. Okay, tell me a little bit more about it. When does it happen? What does it feel like? Um,
Yeah.
have you had an injury there before?
Yes.
Again, also is
Yes.
something that's going to play into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, kind of talking when as you were saying, talking to people and trying to kind of get an idea of like what's going on. Where do you feel it? Can you explain a little bit more? Because I don't want to harp on something if I feel like, okay, I'm not hearing a lot that this is a big deal, right? It's usually when I see people wincing, like as you mentioned, the wince gives it away. And I definitely stop people when I've seen that. I said, okay, I see wincing. What's going on? Well, I'm like, okay, then we're done. And I'm like, oh, but I'm like, we're done. And and they go along with it. They're okay. The online situation is often is much harder than in person, right? I have obviously I own a gym, so I see all my clients primarily in person, and I can fix things immediately, right? If someone comes in and they're having issues with their knee, I can say, where does it hurt? At the bottom, at the top, in between, and we can figure out how to continue to lift if we can find a range of motion that works for them. I mentioned one of my clients in the last podcast, an online client who had a knee issue and went to the PT, and the PT told him about his, tight IT bands or whatever. And I basically said, where does it hurt? Does it hurt at the bottom, at the middle? We found a box. We found a height for him, and he's squatting 135 the other day to that box and looking just fine and not having any issues. And so I automatically, it's more like, okay, I want to keep you moving. We can figure this out. The physical therapist is giving you a bunch of exercises that may or may not be helpful, but we can make this, we can make this, this change in your training so that you can still train. And when things calm down, we can get back to, to business. Because unless I see, like I saw in one of my videos, one of my clients, well, former client, I should say, who reached out to me because he tore his quad, like the knee popped, and I watched the video and I saw him go down. So that was clear. That was like absolutely like you did something to yourself. Like it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like his knee's been bothering him for years now. And it was like, that was it. Just one little move and boom, it was done. That is a case where that happened and he has surgery and it's a done deal. Others, when knees bother us, we're moving we're moving wrong. We moved funny the day before. We slept funny. We've been squatting too far forward, whatever it is. Sometimes it's just a matter of adjusting the technique, reassessing how you're moving, and changing maybe the range of motion so that we can continue to move and not bother it. So but that's all a give and take, right, between the client and the coach. And the coach has to be aware of what to say to that client, how to talk to them, and how to help them understand what exactly they're feeling and going through, and really kind of pulling out all that you can, I think, from that person so that they're getting as much information as possible. And that's also helping the person, kind of giving them asking the right questions so that you get the right answers. Because, I don't want people to think that pain is good. And there's the whole no pain, no gain bullshit from, years and years ago. I tell people all the time, I don't want pain. Are you in pain? No. Okay, then you're fine. So I definitely don't push people, but to continue to do something that's definitely bothering them. But I also don't want to immediately do the mother when the child falls down and isn't crying yet because mom hasn't run over to scoop him up, right? Child falls down, looks up at mom. Mom's like, you okay? You're fine. Get up. Child gets up, right? Might be a little bit, but mom runs over. Are you okay? Child starts to bawl, right? There's that. So I try to kind of treat my adults kind of the same way. Like if something were to happen, I'm not going to automatically, go to that place of the end of the world. I'm going to be calm so that they stay calm, right? And that's easy to come in like that.
Like, because a lot of it is also like when you're talking about the pain experience, it's how the person is perceiving the pain, if there's
Hmm.
past injury around it, the language that you use to
Right.
describe it, but also like the environment in which you
Yes.
live, the
Yes.
water in which you swim. And so much of the culture that we live in has created fear of specifically back pain,
Yes.
knee pain. There's lots of products to be sold, lots of money to be made by
Hmm.
selling that fear. And so people, you just have to assume, are going to be coming to you with that kind of heightened awareness or concern about pain in particular body parts. They might have a worse pain in their, like, say, their calf or something, but that's not one of the highlighted body parts that gets a lot of attention
Right.
from sales.
Right.
So they might have like a lower stress reaction to a calf strain than they would to some sort of a strain that a quad strain that they feel in their knee, or low back strain that they would feel.
Uh, and it's really challenging when, people will hurt themselves. Like I had a client who was working on her house, her new house, and she was painting for hours on end, leaning in such a position that her low back started to bother her and started to hurt. And she never felt that before. So when she came back and came into the gym, she was really hesitant. I said, well, you didn't hurt yourself in the gym, right? So why are you worried about squatting? And she's like, you're right, I didn't. And she squatted just fine and she deadlifted just fine. Now, a couple days later, she came in and she benched first. And when she benched, she felt something. And you can imagine, you're lying down there, you're in that arch. Then she went to squat and her back kind of seized up on her and she freaked out. So when she came in the next time, we had to have a nice little like pull off the ledge and talk. And she did email me about a day later and thanked me for talking to her and talking her through it because it freaked her out because she'd never had any issues before. I said, yeah, but you've also never bought a house before that on your own and working on it. So, you have to realize you're doing other activities in conjunction to coming here. And also, unfortunately, she owns her own business, so she's really busy. So her consistency in the gym has not been that consistent. She hasn't been as consistent. Same with my client who's the doctor, right? So all that kind of factors into it, right? If you're not going to the gym on a regular basis and something occurs, it could be really the reason why things don't quite I say quote unquote heal as well as quickly as they should. It's okay. You just have to take the time, be aware that it's lingering in your head. The body's okay, you're fine, and it's not the end of the world. But that feeling of the end of the world is there when someone's never experienced something like this before. And they start to kind of freak out and they go down that rabbit hole of WebMD. And next thing you know, they have cancer. Because, and I've done that.
Right.
But it was like this was a daily living. Like you did something that you hadn't done before. Anytime you do something different, your body's going to go, what the hell is that? What did you just do to me? I've never been in that position before. It's just it's just who we are. Kids can get away with it because they're small and they're little. Adults have a harder time getting away with it because we're not small and little anymore. So there's that of kind of like, injuring yourself outside and then coming into the gym and freaking out because now you're in the gym and I don't want to do anything that's going to make things worse. It's like, well, this is going to make things better, but we have to maybe take it slow, and be mindful about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think just one thing from what we've talked about that I kind of just want to highlight is this idea. A lot of times, um, you've got conflicting notions floating around out there. You had mentioned the slogan "No pain, no gain,"
Yes.
and there's on the other end of the spectrum in terms of slogans is motion is lotion, right? So
Right.
kind of figure out, should I be pushing through pain? How do I
Right.
understand, pain in terms of this? Like, and I think we're sort of encouraging people that unless it is this shooting, stabbing, I'm going to vomit kind of pain, there is probably some movement or some form of exercise that would be beneficial in the healing process. But it is not likely, if you're experiencing pain, on sort of even middle range of the 1 to 5 or the 1 to 10 scale, it is not likely to be the exact same thing that you've been doing. You're going to find a change, a range of motion change, a change in the weight on the bar that allows you to do the movement with a sensation that you would characterize more along the lines of a 2 out of 10, not something that is a 5 out of 10, not something that is a 3 or 4 out of 5. So you're going to probably need to make some changes and some adjustments, range of motion, maybe even exercise selection. It might be a totally different exercise that works for you at that point.
Yes.
But sort of finding what you can do. And then the other piece of it is also addressing, if there was a form issue that contributed to the buildup of some pain or an injury, addressing whatever that form issue is and correcting that. Not just, well, my coach said I should keep moving, so I'm going to just go back in and do what I had planned or what the program says. You're going to have to make some changes.
Yes.
But the change should not, most likely, the change should not be, I'm going to just sit on the sofa.
Right. And that's, and that's what you have to educate. That's what comes down to the educating, the client, educating the member, educating the person, because that is a huge part of training. Not just the training itself, getting in the gym, squatting and pressing, but understanding what to do when, if something were to happen, if I can't make it, if I go in and something feels off, not throwing my hands up and, and leaving or, falling apart. No, it just could be that, well, what did I do? I don't know. Did you sleep funny? I may have. Okay, well, let's warm up and see what happens. I mean, how many times has someone come in and said, my shoulder's bothering, my knee's bothering me? And I go, okay, let's warm up and see how things feel. And, 20 minutes later, I haven't heard a peep out of them. And I don't bring it up. And I've said this before. I don't even bring it up again. I don't ask them, how's the knee? Because I don't want them to remember that they came in talking about it, right? Or I'll have a client who will start squatting and then say, oh no, the knee. I'm like, well, did you see how you were squatting? Your knees were, you were totally on your toes. So let's review how to squat. And then all of a sudden the hips move back. Oh, my knee feels fine. So it's, as Dan John said, it's, people, it's not squats don't make your knees feel bad. It's how you squat makes your knees hurt, right? I can watch somebody and my body hurts watching them lift. If they're lifting in such a way, I'm like, I don't know how you just picked that up, but good for you. So it's the getting back to how should I be moving? What, because sometimes we go off the trail, and coming back to taking the weight off the bar, like you were saying, and kind of getting back to technique and moving well. I call those training sessions and training lifts medicinal lifting.
Medicinal deadlift or
medicinal deadlift, medicinal squat, medicinal bench. Like, find a weight that you can squat, you can bench, and bench that until you can go up next time. And that's okay. Maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month. I've deadlifted 95 pounds once for a month straight before I knew I could add weight. I would try to add weight and automatically right away, my back would say, we're not ready. Okay, I back off. So it's learning how to, but you need someone to help you and guide you. And then I like when my clients will come to me and say, this is feeling kind of this today. And it's something I know. And they're like, I'm taking, weight off, or I'm just going to do a triple of this, and not great. They're learning themselves. They're learning for themselves, that it's okay to take weight off the bar. But I want them to have had time to really assess what the situation is, not just automatically take weight off the bar because they feel something. We all feel something.
You go in, you do your warm up, you get started, you get a baseline read. Like, if your baseline read in everyday life is a 5 out of 10, find something else to do.
That's right.
If your baseline read in everyday life is a 2 or a 3, come
Yeah.
on in, give it a
Yeah.
try with whatever that exercise is. Find the range of motion, find the weight on the bar that allows you to stay at a 2 or a 3 out of
That's
10.
exactly,
If it
exactly.
picks up, you've gone too far. Back it off. Find what works that day.
Mm-hmm. I
You
had a
know,
client who
get the
just,
baseline
yeah,
read and then pay attention to what happens to that baseline read either on the way it ticks up or it ticks down. Because a lot of times you go in, especially with backs, they feel better when you start moving them. So if
yep,
it starts to feel better, you're kind of on the right track there.
that's it. That's it. I had a client who just did that with one of his, with his quad. It was, other quad. He had injured his, one quad before he joined and was doing great. And then, something happened to the other side. It was just a strain. So he didn't squat for a couple weeks, and then he decided to do a light squat. His light squat was 315. So he squatted 315, felt great. No problems. Okay. So he came in the following Monday and he decided to, try to go up to his, to atop a heavier weight. The minute he put that weight on, it was straightened again.
Mm.
And I said, so he said 315 was fine. I'm like, well, 315 was fine. Obviously that weight, not so fine. So you have to figure out, where can I squat? Like, how much weight is enough weight? And unfortunately, it got to a point, like when that happened, he's down to like 135 now. I think he squatted 140 today. And he tested it out about a week ago and he wasn't quite ready. So, he stopped again, and then he tested it out again. But he said to me, I said, you're going to go light? And I'm thinking to myself, please don't say 315. He said 135. I was like, good, you're learning. I mean, and then this guy was, he's close to 400 with a squat, but you just can't jump right back into it. I mean, if something really is strained, and this is somebody who, lifts heavy, is strong, starting to understand more about how to reevaluate an injury, not stop, which he wasn't doing, but back off. He said, I can deadlift. I said, you sure you can deadlift? I can deadlift. I was like, well, what'd you do last time? This. I said, why don't you add 20, 30 more pounds. He's looked at me like, really? I said, I'd rather you deadlift that today and show me that you can deadlift that. And if you can, then yes, you can go up. And he did. And he looked at me, and he's like, this confident look. And I said, well, good, you can go up next time. I said, but I don't want you to do what you did with your squat. Jump to that weight, hurt yourself again, and then now you're backwards even more. Right. And that's what happened, unfortunately, with the squat. So, you have to kind of feel it out and go. And sometimes you'll know if it's like 10 pounds more, 15 pounds more, and it hurts, and back it back down. But you can't make these massive jumps. You have to kind of start to, and that's sometimes, unfortunately, you have to kind of go through I re-injured myself process before you realize, okay, next time I won't do that. I've learned my lesson. It's not a great lesson to learn, but at least you've learned it, hopefully, and you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again, because then you're just, I mean, that's not training. That's just being stupid.
So did we circle back around to the thing that you had forgotten that was on the tip of your
I
tongue? Do
still
you feel
cannot
like
remember.
we hit it? No.
I can't remember. It'll come to me before, when we leave, when we stop the
You could
podcast.
put it in
I'll
the show notes.
remember it. I'll remember it. I can't remember. I'm trying to think of what it was. It was probably, I probably said it in a different way. I know as a dancer, I've had to really work hard to tell myself the difference between like real pain that's going to affect me if I keep pushing it, and what is just uncomfortable right now, and discomfort. And it's not, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm not going to make things worse, right? Because when you're a dancer and you get injured, and you tell them you're injured, well, then you don't get a role, right? You lose out on the specific role, let's say, in a show. So you try to keep all your injuries to yourself so that other people don't get ahead of you. Because if they get ahead of you, it's really messed up, right? But there were many, I mean, but I plenty of times where I didn't feel, I didn't feel fantastic, but I pushed through things because I did not want to not dance, right? And I had a revelation back in 2007, I think it was 2007, 2008. I can't remember what year it was when I broke my metatarsal, my fifth metatarsal on my foot dancing. I was in rehearsal and I broke it. It was the beginning of September. And I actually said to myself, if I can't dance in the concert in October, I'm okay with it. And I really was like, okay with not performing. That wouldn't have been me how many years ago. I ended up dancing a month later, even though I broke my toe. It healed on its
So,
own.
yeah, this kind of gets back to what we've talked about before. What is your why? So if you have an injury, run it past your what is your why.
Yeah.
And if your why is that you're a competitive dancer or a competitive lifter, maybe there's some rationale to pushing through some pain or sucking it up or something like that. But if you are lifting in order to have a more active and healthy life, then
it's different. So different.
Yeah, it's a totally different story.
Yeah. And that's why I don't do that anymore, because I don't
your
lift to compete. Right.
Your why changed.
I don't lift to compete. I lift for my, my daily living. I want to see myself 30 years from now continuing to, do what I'm doing. Maybe in a, not as much weight or, not as long of a session, but definitely as a dancer, that was a key moment where I thought to myself, if I don't perform in this concert, I'm okay with that, because that was not me. I catastrophized everything. An injury put me out. That was it. My life was over if I couldn't perform. Not so much now. And the whole idea of like, if I can't squat, bench, press, or deadlift, I might as well not train. Well, that's bullshit too. So I've learned to not ignore that, right? That there are plenty of other exercises that I can do and that are good for me and that will allow me to continue to build strength and build muscle. And they don't have to be those 4 main lifts if I can't do one of them or 2 of them right now. So teaching people that, educating them on these are good exercises for you. They are wonderful. They're compound movements. Everyone can learn them, but we have to also acknowledge what our bodies want to do, and sometimes it may not be in the cards, or something occurred, and this is more important than the lift. Like you being able to play with your grandchildren is more important than you squatting. If squatting bothers this, we'll find something else that doesn't bother this. And and most people are like, great. It's people who are like dead set on, I have to do this. And it's like, okay, I got to really work with you. I got to really work with you, because definitely I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of like, I'm not squatting. What's my life? Well, the past month I haven't squatted at all or deadlifted. I've been doing lots of leg curls and leg extensions at the cable machine, to calm my hips down. I like to start back to deadlifting. I think the deadlift is okay. I'm going to leave the squat a bit alone for a while, just to kind of, see how things play out. But hey, it's not the end of the world. That's not what training is. Training isn't just if you're not doing these 4 exercises, you're not really living. So that's important too, because I think people come in with one mindset and one idea, and then sometimes it goes a different direction, and you need to be there to kind of help keep them moving, help guide them. For the most part, people are open to that. They're not the diehards.
I think now we shifted off to another topic about rigidity of thinking.
We did, you're right. But I think that goes along with sometimes the pain.
So maybe we circle back to
I think that goes along with the pain thing. I think it goes along with, like, if I'm not doing this.
Covered all of the things.
If I'm not doing this, and I'm going to keep pushing, and because I don't want to give this up. So my knee hurts me, and I'm going to keep complaining about my knee hurting me, but I'm not going to stop squatting. Well, that's just dumb. Sorry. Right? You need to take care of things and also evaluate, like, what kind of pain are we talking about? Okay. And then, and then take it from there and address all the other issues that we can before we decide, okay, we need to remove this exercise or change this way of moving or completely, eliminate X, Y, or Z. So I think that kind of goes along with that pain issue. Yeah. Anything else you want to add? I think that's pretty good. That was about it. I don't think there's anything else that we want to add. We have a topic, a podcast on pain in our archives. I can't remember where it is, but I remember it somewhere. But I'm not sure if we addressed some of the same things that we talked about today. We may have. Always a good topic to discuss because it's always I think on people's minds and kind of part of our living. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I remember now, real fast. So people, when people hurt themselves outside the gym, right? Painting their house, weeding, playing football, playing baseball, playing recreational pickleball, all that kind of stuff. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's like, it's a given. Oh, you hurt. Oh, but you're painting your house and nobody gives a shit, right? One of my members, she pulled something in her upper back. Hasn't ever had an issue before, pulled something. She said to me, she's so pissed. She said to me, she goes, I can't believe how many people have basically said to me, well, if you weren't lifting all that weight, that wouldn't have happened. I'm thinking to myself, I said, tell them to shut the fuck up. Excuse me. I said, they have nothing to say. I said, ignore them because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they need to shut up because that is not why you hurt yourself. I mean, it's because no one ever says a word when if someone hurts themselves running, well, you better stop running. I mean, it's because you're running. If you weren't running, it's more like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry your knee's bothering you, or I'm sorry that you hurt yourself running, but lifting weights, and everybody right away has their opinion, and their opinion is, well, that's what you get. And honestly, like on the chart of fewest number of injuries, lifting weights is like at the very bottom, and the very top is what? Soccer.
Yeah.
Soccer, field hockey, anything. But that's just football, but those are sports. People hurt themselves. Yeah, people hurt themselves all the times, but no one tells you to stop playing football or stop playing baseball or stop playing soccer. But right away, it's, well, if you weren't lifting those weights, it gets a bad rap. It gets a bad rap. That's what I wanted to say, because that irritated the crap out of me when she told me that. And I just said, ignore them. Yeah, well,
because that's one of those factors that then plays into a person's pain experience. If it's
exactly
lifting, and it affects the way they protect or protect their, that area.
And it's always somebody who doesn't want to do this, who doesn't like it. And therefore, when they see that you are hurt from something, it justifies why they don't do it. And it justifies why you shouldn't do it either. Just because you don't like it and you don't like doing it, you don't like doing hard things, doesn't mean that I don't like doing hard things. And sometimes doing hard things is gonna, make our bodies feel a certain way. Playing football is hard. Playing baseball is hard. Playing pickleball may be hard. No one tells people to stop playing pickleball, but deadlifting, squatting. Do you want to? Do you have a death wish? There, I'm off my soapbox now.
You're all fired up.
Everybody, that's why, because I was like, what did I forget? Why was I? And then I remembered that. I remember that because that makes me more mad than anything when people say, well, that's what you get for.
You suppressed it because it was so upsetting.
I was so upsetting to me. I completely went out of my head, and then all of a sudden it came back to me again. So on that note, we can end there. We will end there on that note. So of course, if you've got comments or questions about anything we discussed today, or if you've got, questions about just in general, if you've got something that you've been dealing with and you'd like our opinion, or we're not doctors, obviously, I should have said that before. We're not doctors. We're not physicians. This is just our experience as lifters and coaches, but we'd be happy to, address anything that you have maybe a concern about. You can always email me at emily@5by3.com. You can always email Rebecca at
cornerstonestrengthmaryland@gmail.com.
That is it for today. We will be back. Actually, I don't know when we'll be back. Are we going to take August off, or are we going to come back in September? It'll depend.
We should figure that out. We don't.
Rebecca and I need to figure that. We need to figure that out. We need to figure that out because usually we take a break in August, but maybe we decide to do a few more podcasts. But we will be back sometime soon. In the meantime, again, contact us if you've got questions, and of course, always send us any thoughts of your own about what kind of podcast, a topic that you'd like us to talk about. We'd be happy to address any of your questions and concerns. That's it. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care.
We'll be back soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.